It seems Athol Trollip will have to contend with being out of the Nelson Mandela Bay mayoral seat. The DA today lost an urgent bid to overturn his ousting in the Eastern Cape High Court. Trollip was booted out of his position during a no-confidence vote last month. The decision means the UDM's Mongameli Bobani retains his mayoral position. Political analyst Ongama Mtimka joins us now from Port Elizabeth to discuss what this means for politics in the Bay. Good evening, Ongama. Thanks very much for your time. Quite a blow to the Democratic Alliance, isn't it?
Good evening, Pravuyo. I think this is justice at its best. Had the meeting been allowed to continue on that day that the Speaker, Jonathan Lawak, was removed, this is the outcome we would have had. So the fact that there were questions around the legality of the process was a result of deliberate survival strategy, not a plan by the opposition to remove Athol Trollip illegally. I think that's one thing that needs to be clear. And it was the court today re-emphasized or reasserted the importance of due process and the rule of law above the importance of political imperatives. So it was good that the DA took this matter to court so that you could have, for example, the judge clarify once and for all the issue of the limitation a political party has to fire a legislator who had started the council meeting duly representing the party. If it was allowed, the tactic that the DA did, it would have spelled chaos throughout the country, both in municipal councils, provincial governments, as well as the national government. Because you cannot have a situation where a political party feels that it has a right to fire people that are likely to vote with the opposition immediately while the council is in session.
I mean, you pointed to flaws in the political decision-making of the DA. It also said, quote, the principles of natural justice were barely, if at all, observed by the Democratic Alliance. So the court indeed quite scathing. But I want to bring in the city manager, Johan Mettler, and his role, because it does look like he worked hand in hand, or at the very least tried to assist the Democratic Alliance.
Yeah. So I remember there was a time in that meeting where he had been carefully handling the proceedings, but I think he embroiled himself when he declared a vacancy when faced with two letters in front of him, one from Manyati's lawyers declaring the intention to challenge the DA's firing of Manyati. What the best he should have done is that I'm faced with two letters in front of me, and I am not a competent person to decide on these two. Therefore, Manyati should have stayed. It was logic for him to actually continue, because the municipal manager, while he may have arguably said that it was within his right to respond to what the DA was saying, which by the way itself was not in the provisions in terms of how a councillor ceases to become a councillor, because the Act only allows for a resignation or disqualification to be the basis upon which a councillor can resign. There's no firing by a political party that is provided for. Obviously, the court today didn't go to that extent, but I think Mr. Mettler embroiled himself when he decided to actually pass a decision which would have required a judge or a competent institution in the form of a court to decide from a procedural point of view who was in the right between the DA and Manyati during that time.
Bantu Olomisa tweeted today after the judgment, and I quote just one part of that tweet: "Go learn how to work with other parties rather than bullying them." And I'm raising this because I want to ask you whether, how much do you think of what happened today, of what we had today, was as a result of was in fact because of the DA's, or maybe I should say Athol Trollip's own making? Because when you go back to where it all started, I'm not talking about the day of the vote, where it all started, when he got rid of Mongameli Bobani, Bantu Olomisa was patient, saying, if you have something that you have found against Mongameli Bobani, bring it on and I will take a decision about his future. And that never happened. And I remember a little later on, ACDP leader Kenneth Meshwe saying that, is also on record, expressing his dissatisfaction about the way the DA has treated them as allies.
So, Bravuyo, there's a number of things at play here. One, there's a view that says, look, what should be outcomes of political processes should be moralistic. So what is the best thing, what is right, then that happens. So in the case of, for example, that was the position that informed the coalition at national level. They were saying, Trollip is accusing Bobani of corruption, and Bobani is not only accusing but has gone on to open a case. So let's have these weighed and the national leadership be guided as to how best to resolve the matter. While they were busy with that, indeed, there was local action which I think was a tactical maneuvering by the DA to say, look, Athol, you have a problem with this guy. Both of you have got, it's difficult for the two of you to work together. Maybe deal with him at the metro level. At national level, we'll just play the role of plausible deniability, which is what, in fact, ended up happening, because there was a time when the messaging around what is the fate of Bobani shifted from being directed at national level to being at what the municipality and Athol Trollip were doing. But here is the thing about the personalities of both Bobani and Trollip. I felt at some stage that both the national leadership could have done something about both of those candidates, of those persons. But the reality of the matter was that both Trollip and Bobani were bigwigs in their parties, and these were what ended up happening was political accommodation rather than justice, if you like. That happened. But the challenge with the DA is that once it decided to resolve what was a conflict in the executive and shift it towards council, they had no strategy whatsoever to then regain the position within council, even if it's by one seat. Because what then happened is that when they had secured a deal with the Patriotic Alliance, soon they didn't follow through with whatever the promises that had led to that deal being signed. And the Patriotic Alliance led a campaign to fire Athol Trollip, and they were saved by the EFF. And then until that time when the EFF felt that they also, wanted to, play their own power game and punish the DA for not voting with them, which reopened this. Again, that they were saved by the Patriotic Alliance, but again did not follow through with whatever the agreement was between them and the Patriotic Alliance. So to some degree, yes, they must take blame for failing to build stability when they had options to do so. But at some other levels, the personality clashes between Bobani and Trollip were just unbearable, and something needed to be done about them. And I think weakening themselves in this way was their decided way forward. My only challenge is that they then didn't have a plan to sustain themselves once they decided that it was time to part ways with Bobani.
Ongama Mtimka, thanks very much for your insights here.